Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here. I want to thank Dr. Joseph for the opportunity to make this first presentation today. Today is the feast of St. Francis of Assisi, so there's no better day to talk about ecology and to talk about it from the African perspective than today. So this is the title of my presentation, as you can see on the screen. So at Bethany Land Institute in Nandere village, which is 27 miles north of Uganda's capital city of Kampala, young African Christians are reimagining the mission of African Christianity and the church from an ecological perspective. In July 2024, I took a 2-week research trip to Nandere, the second time I visited the institute, to gain deeper insight into how these young Christians see the role of the church in addressing the ravages of ecological violence in their local communities. The fact that this revival is happening in an African village, a setting which fits the popular image of marginalized and neglected spaces, should not be overlooked. Colonial modernity bequeathed to Africa the legacy of the village as a place where nothing good can come out from. Emmanuel captures this reality accurately when he writes. I'm not sure I want to read this long quotation, but it captures the image and the reality of the village in Africa. This image of the village provides the backdrop for the continuous hemorrhaging of Africa's rural communities. Believing that there is no future for them in the village, many young Africans troop to urban centers in search of better economic opportunities. However, many of them end up in slums and informal settlements on the edges of the city. While they would wish to be returned to the village and buried on their ancestral lands when they die, their exodus from the village is partly the result of a modern worldview that serves to alienate them from the land. When Father Katangole and his 2 friends began to think about Bethany Land Institute on the occasion of their 25th anniversary of priesthood in 2012, part of the aim was to help young people realize that they can have a future with better economic opportunities and a sense of dignity in the village without having to relocate to the cities, while also taking care to preserve the environment, which was hemorrhaging as a result of rapid deforestation. BLI is an agricultural institute inspired by Laudato Si that aspires to be an innovative African hub for cultivating and nurturing the vision, lifestyle, spirituality, and practice of integral ecology. It has a 2-year residential program where young people drawn from across Uganda's rural communities are formed in regenerative agriculture, animal farming, agroforestry, soil and water conservation, and economic sustainability. So these are 2 quotations that are very central to the imagination of BLI and what BLI does from Laudato Si. Upon graduation, these students are commissioned as caretakers with a mission to return to their local communities and implement projects of agricultural and rural social transformation. So this photo was taken by myself at the last graduation, which was in July this year. Since it formally opened its doors in 2019, BLI has graduated 3 sets of students. Many graduated caretakers have started their farms and are able to provide for the needs of their families while also taking care of the land and the environment in line with the vision of Laudato Si. So these are some photos from the graduation ceremony in July. And these are some of the caretakers that I spoke with who are working in various rural communities to set up their farms, but also to start projects of agricultural transformation. BLI's theological vision is shaped by the biblical Bethany, a village few miles outside of Jerusalem where the poor and lepers lived. The Gospels reveal that Jesus frequented this village to spend time with a particular family of 3 siblings.
Just give him a minute to fix the audio
There's an issue.
for virtual participants.
Yeah, sorry. Let's see. Does this work any better for people online right now? Can somebody online let me know if you could hear what we're saying? Okay, great.
Thank you. Shaped by this biblical imagination, BLI's 3 formation programs, Lazarus's Forest, Mary's School, and Martha's Market, are designed to mimetically reflect the uniqueness of the Bethany siblings. The program of reforestation and tree planting imitates Lazarus, who died and was raised to life. The program of formation in integral ecology through regenerative agriculture imitates Mary, the one who sat at the feet of Jesus to listen to his teaching. While the program of economic sustainability, marketing, and financial literacy is designed to reflect the virtues of Martha, who is associated with hospitality and home management. At BLI, this group of young African Christians are thinking of the village and the land differently. Despite living in communities that are among the worst hit by ecological and social crises facing Africa, these Christians are harnessing the resources of their faith, creativity, and agency in responding to their environmental and social problems. What is even more interesting is that living at the margins of political, economic, and religious power, these young Christians do not consider themselves powerless. On the contrary, they are seeking to shape new possibilities for their local churches and communities in the mission of creation care, ecological stewardship, and reconnection to the land. My paper shares preliminary results of an ongoing field work that I am doing at BLI. But before I proceed, I would like to situate the discourse on ecology within world Christianity in order to provide a context for what follows after. So this is just to offer us, those who are not familiar with where Uganda is, just a sense of the country and, basic facts about the country. And if you are looking for resources on BLI, these are some resources on BLI. Around the world today, ordinary citizens and Christian scholars are coming to terms with ongoing ecological destruction. This situation is not only generating an awakening of the importance of ecology in Christian theology and mission, it has in fact brought about a disruption in these 2 related fields. Both theology and missiology can no longer proceed as usual, oblivious to the groans of creation, or remain satisfied with regurgitating traditional theological formulas or recycling old and tired Western-centered epistemological frameworks in Africa. The disruption that our environmental and social crisis has brought to planetary consciousness challenges Christians to develop new theological imaginations and to discover new ways of being Christian in the world. Indeed, what Christianity most urgently needs at this hour of history to better respond creatively with fresh vision and invigorating moral force to ongoing environmental destruction is what some theologians have called an ecological reformation, or the ecological reformation of global Christianity, as Mary Evelyn Tucker puts it. Over the last 3 or so decades, African theologians and scholars have produced an abundance of theological literature on the ecological crisis facing Africa. However, so little attention has been devoted to what the crisis means for the church in Africa, or how it might challenge normative conceptions of church and mission. Where a few African scholars have attempted to provide missiological reflections on ecology, the engagement has remained largely theoretical, without grounding in the concrete lived realities and experiences of ordinary believers and local communities. What Willis Jenkins says about missiology being extraterrestrial, disconnected and abstracted from geographical contexts appear to be true of the way many African theologians have approached the subject of eco-missiology. In light of the world Christian turn, there is a need to take account of the situation, actions, and experiences of ordinary believers and local communities at the grassroots, and to put them at the very heart of missiological reflections on ecology and the church. This would not be asking for too much. The poor and vulnerable in our local communities, where Christianity's exponential growth in the global south is most visible, disproportionately bear the burden of a great deal of our ecological and social crisis. Their realities and experiences need to therefore shape and reshape understandings of world Christianity. I find Philip Jenkins's description of the implications of Christianity's demographic transformation quite useful for grounding my argument. Jenkins tells us that if we want to visualize a typical contemporary Christian, we should think of a woman living in a village in Nigeria or in a Brazilian favela. This shift in geographical location and power dynamics is instructive for any discussion of Africa's place in world Christianity. For if we have to take this village woman seriously, we must ask what it would look like to place her at the center of missiological reflections on the environmental crisis facing Africa. What does it mean to look at Africa's ecological challenges through the eyes of this village woman? What can we learn from her experiences to inform the mission of African Christianity today? I raise these questions with the understanding that world Christianity cannot remain a purely abstract or speculative discipline, but has to engage with real human beings in specific locations and with the vicissitudes of their daily struggles. This conviction is quite evident in the works of Lamin Sanneh, a pioneer figure in the field. For at the heart of world Christianity as conceived by Sanneh is an incarnational realism, which presupposes that the deep grounding of Christian faith in specific soils and contexts. For Sanneh, world Christianity is not a merely theoretical concept, but points to specific geographical locations where Christians live and how they are mobilizing the incarnational message of Christianity to respond to complex social, economic, religious, and political issues and conditions. So, that's just to say that world Christianity has to be concrete, has to engage with people on the ground, with flesh and blood, not just a speculative discipline. Now, these are some of the young people at Bethany Land Institute that I met and interviewed during my last visit in July. They belong to 5 different cohorts. So Bethany Land Institute started in 2019. And every year it keeps admitting a number of young people drawn from various rural communities across Uganda. And they spend 2 years in this formation. They are taught the vision and the ideas of Laudato Si, and then they have practical work in the field, in the farms, and then just learning how to implement Laudato Si in practice. So they are young. I interviewed 45 people. And the oldest among the cohort is 31 years old, the youngest is 14, and then the median age. And then I'm just doing this basic division to let you see how many Catholics, Protestants, Pentecostals, and Muslims have attended the Institute or are there at this present time. So the motivation for this research that I am doing, which is part of supporting the work that Father Kotangole is doing, is that integral ecology is not a speculative notion. It is a form of praxis. It is something that can be implemented in practice. So part of the research is to measure the impact of the formation of BLI on these young people. What are they learning at BLI? Where are they coming from? What's their family situation? What's their history, their social history, and what plans do they have for their future when they leave BLI? So, and there are a number of social constraints. The school fees is $100, but not very many people are even able to afford $100 for a year. So you have a program that is called Work and Study, where people work for BLI and then they get some money which they turn over into their fees. So there are lots of constraints. You also have to have a portion of land as a condition for enrollment. Not very many of these young people have land. Their families don't even have land. So there are lots of constraints. But yeah, so that is it. But I know I don't have much time, so I'll just go to the conclusion. 5 minutes. Thank you. So this is Father Dennis. He's among the 45 people that I talked to. So I'll just give a brief about his story and then conclude. So Father Dennis Kakuza is 27 years old, and he celebrated his first anniversary as a priest in August this year. He was among 14 seminarians sent by their local bishop of Kasana Luero Diocese, Paul Semogerere, who is now the Archbishop of Kampala, to BLI during the summer months of 2021. They were to spend time studying at BLI before returning to the seminary to continue their priestly formation. Initially, the seminarians were reluctant to go to BLI, given that they were studying philosophy and theology in view of the priesthood. They felt it was beneath them to go to this institute and do this special course that involved dipping their hands in the soil and working with farming implements. However, they eventually went to BLI because they had to obey their bishop. Father Dennis tells me that at first it was a bit funny because they were introduced to Laudato Si and told to see everything as their brothers and sisters. He says, and I quote, "So we used to joke around saying brother cat, sister tree, brother monkey, sister jackfruit. Gradually, we began to realize the importance of the program," unquote. Father Dennis said that within a short period of time, the seminarians began to have their minds changed as they learned about the harmful effects of using chemical fertilizers and littering plastic bottles. They learned how to make organic fertilizer for crops and how to recycle plastic bottles. When I visited Father Dennis at Our Lady of Lourdes Parish in Nakasongola, where he serves as associate pastor, he showed me how he is using old plastic bottles to grow flowers in his nursery. Father Dennis has poultry and rabbit farms and also grows corn, vegetables, and medicinal fruits, such as soursop, which provides food ingredients for the parish rectory. He has also acquired 3 acres of orchard from the parish, where he plans to set up a Laudato Si club for the formation of students in the parish primary and secondary schools. His environmental sensitization of the students in the parish school is already bearing fruit. At first, when I arrived here, he says, the students used to litter everywhere on the school compound. Reaching the compound, one could see a lot of papers, polythene bags, and plastic bottles. But now that has changed. Even the way they dress has generally changed because I told them that loving nature is not only about keeping the environment, but also keeping themselves clean. If they love themselves, they can also love and take care of the environment. Unquote. When he celebrates Mass, Father Dennis makes a point to also sensitize his parishioners about the importance of planting trees. In Nakasongola, he says, people don't see the value of keeping the environment, as one of the main economic activities here is charcoal burning and cutting trees. Father Dennis is convinced that the church has a mission to preach the gospel of creation care. We cannot minister effectively to the people we are sent to serve if they have poor health, are without food, and are sick. Remember, if you tamper with nature, if you don't preserve the environment, people will fall sick and they will lack food. Food security is very important. If you preach to people with empty stomach, they will just be looking at you. My time is up, but this is just to offer us some insight into the kind of work that I am doing at BLI, but also to get a sense of what the young people there are thinking. Unfortunately, I'm not able to offer you so many accounts of my interviews with the young people, but it just offers you a sense of how young people can begin to rediscover their sense of agency and their role within the church and how they are looking at the church from an ecological perspective and the mission of Christianity in Africa today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, questions for our presenter? It's not so much a question, but maybe a question as well. Africa stands at the crossroad of this is the time of Africa, in the sense that the productivity rate, fertility rate and all that stuff, and the demographics, Africa has the largest number of young people, the workforce of all continents in the world. And that's the most productive era that the continent can have in its history. It may not repeat itself again until maybe centuries later. That said, I'm not against what you guys are doing. You and I had a conversation on this earlier on. I love it. But the question I'm asking, this is Band Aid. What is the church in Uganda or in Africa doing to ask the question and address the systems that produce poverty in Africa that makes it impossible for that demographics to have access to be able to be truly productive and contribute to the economy? Is the center addressing that question? Or is it just seeing itself as, okay, let's just do a little thing and leave it there?
Thank you. Two ways to approach this question. The first one is to look at it from the perspective of the young people who are there. One, this question should be of great importance to them, but again, it is not their immediate concern. The immediate concern that they have is, I have personal needs. I need to be able to fend for myself. I need to be able to take care of my family. So what can I do? There's a young guy, I'm not sure, I don't know if his picture is okay, I didn't put his picture here, but there's a young guy I spoke to who says, I have colleagues who have gone to university. They have a degree, but they don't have anything to do. Now, he's not gone to university, but he's at BLI, and he has this fat, big dreams about what he wants to do when he leaves BLI. In fact, he has already graduated from BLI, but he's among the instructors at BLI, so he's earning something. He's able to take care of his family, he's able to take care of his needs. So at that level, you need a certain level of intellectual capacity to be able to ask and answer this kind of question. But people who have that capacity, you can ask the question forever, but it's not going to put food on your table. So maybe it is our own challenge to ask those sort of questions that the people at Bethany Land Institute are unable to ask, and then find ways to address it. Of course, you're familiar with Father Katangole's political theology. There are great strengths, but there are also limitations of it. But I think that it's an important question that we have to ask, because how many years will it take you for this turnover to have a remarkable impact on the community over time, right? But again, it speaks to what Katangole calls the gospel imagination, which I believe in, which is that we have to start somewhere, and we have to start small, no matter how small that is. And the gospel imagination of the mustard seed is something that grows over time. And so there's a place for this kind of work, but there's also a place for the kind of questions that we need to ask, which, are important. Am I the one choosing who to ask? Okay.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I'd like to thank you, Emmanuel, for the great work. You know, I was lucky to be at Notre Dame when your whole team presented your research, and I was also happy to be at the formal inauguration of Bethany House, or Bethany Land, in 2022. I think, to speak to what you're saying, Simon, is what I see here is a narrative of redemption in the midst of a narrative of contamination. Because and that's a question for you, the Prime Minister of Uganda was there at the formal inauguration of Bethany Land Institute. So, and she made all kinds of promises. We're going to adopt this is wonderful. So I said to Emmanuel, this woman shouldn't be here, because if they were doing their work, you would not be doing this. Now, and that goes to the disruptive, subversive nature of what you're doing, is to demonstrate what is possible. It's not to reconstruct the whole nation, but the gospel is a demonstration of what is possible. So my question for you is between hope and what I might call the praxis of hope, because the Kenyan scholar who died 4 years ago wrote a book, A New Harvest, basically saying this, that Africa is the food basket of the world. And So, and it's our hope. Many people say Africa is the new center of world Christianity. The dislocation you're teaching us or showing us is that the center in Kampala is where many people are rushing to. Just like Christianity was centered somewhere in the West. And now there is a reversal. And in this reversal, we have a new narrative. And some people elsewhere are saying what you're doing doesn't make sense. So what do you say from your experience to people who say, oh, this doesn't really make sense. You know, the mountain is too high. That what is happening is a hope that can be replicated and that can grow like a mustard seed. Thank you.
Thank you. Is this a question or a contribution?
It might not be a question.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Okay. Mark.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think this is a very great initiative that has been given life, and there is hope it will grow. But I am more from a very common sense perspective. What are we doing with the great pessimism towards this whole thing of Laudato Si and natural fertilization and all of those? Because apart from people who are ignorant, there are also people who are very well lettered, but they feel this looks like some kind of injustice. It is, as Simon said, it is time for Africa to grow and bloom. And then you say we should not use all the mechanization and fertilization and go back to the very... what you're preaching is very expensive. And if we agree that economically Africa is so down that students cannot have $100 to pay for their fees, apart from this control group and all the promises it holds, what is this center thinking about doing more to help people be converted to even agree that they need to start implementing Laudato Si against, like, oh, you guys have depleted the ozone layer and developed your place. Now we want to start. You said, no, don't do it. It's greenhouse emission. So that's the kind of thinking I'm bringing from the streets, like common sense, to say, where is this in your own considerations moving forward?
Maybe 50 years ago, people knew where their food came from because our parents were farmers. We went to the farm. We saw where our food came from. You can imagine the farm to the food on your table. Now, the modern industrial economy has occluded that kind of reality. People don't really know where their food comes from. Many people think that their food comes from the superstore or the supermarket. And that's a big issue because then you don't even ask. I mean, Norman Wisber says the most political thing is eating because it raises a number of political questions. How is this produced? Where is it produced from? The people who produce it, is there a sense of justice in the work that they do? So all of those are very important questions because what I'm really driving at is that mechanized industrial kind of agriculture is also contributing to various health outcomes that many people have today. The way the chicken is produced, within a few weeks, the chicken is okay for consumption, but it's been pumped with all kinds of chemical foods. And then that has adverse effect on human health. So the journey back to regenerative agriculture is also in line with human flourishing, but also ecological flourishing. There will be the naysayers, of course. There have always been the naysayers. The reason why Francis had to write Laudate Deum as well, because of many naysayers. But I think that we need, if everybody has a sense of where their food comes from, and they are part of the production of that food, then it takes a lot of the burden of poverty from many people, because there are very many people who don't know that, who don't realize that they can do so much. I mean, there are young people who told me, people who have land but don't even know what to do with it. What they do is to sell the land and then go and buy a motorcycle, which they are driving in the city. But again, that disconnects them from the land because you no longer have a land. You don't have a reason to want to even go back to the village. So, and at the end of the day, that doesn't amount to so much. So it's a conversation that we will continue to have, but I think that industrial agriculture has its own place, but again, it has to be reimagined, not in the way that it is currently practiced with all of the health hazards that it has for human beings. Yeah. Perfect.
And that's great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'll ask my question after.
Oh.
There are no questions. Perfect.